Just thank you to everybody for being here tonight. This is our second night of superintendent interviews, and tonight we're interviewing Dr. Bart Reeves. And welcome to your family and to yourself for being here. And thank you for applying for the position of superintendent. It's a compliment to us and our city and our school system. So we're happy to have you and have a conversation with you and get to know you better.
Thank you.
So we're going to start out and let everybody introduce herself. I'm Kathy Brown, and I've been in the city of Trussville a long time, 36 years, maybe 35. 37, I'm not sure, but have 5 children, all graduates of Hewitt-Trussville. And even my dad graduated in 1950 from Hewitt-Trussville. So longtime resident. So we'll just go down the line.
Okay.
Well, Bart and I know each other because I've worked on some policies with him, but
Yeah.
Bart, I've been here about 8 years and, we know the story and we both talk shoes sometimes. when
Yeah,
we're together.
that's right. Absolutely. Good to see you.
Hi, my name is Sherry Tobert. I've been living here in Trussville for 17 years. I have 2 children that graduated from here at Trussville, and I love this community and enjoy serving my community.
I'm Steve Ward. I've lived in Trussville since 2006. 2 grandchildren that went through Trussville City Schools. I'm a retired educator, did all my work in Georgia, but I moved here in Alabama back to this area. So good to have you with us.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So each member of the board, we know you've got a question bank and we've got a questions we would like to ask you, and we'll just kind of round robin it. And we expect this interview to last approximately an hour. We'll also give you the opportunity to ask us any questions you might want to ask us.
Okay.
So we're going to begin and just start for the first 2 or 3 minutes. Anything you want to tell us about work, education, personal, just have at it.
All right. Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to interview. I'm excited to be here, and more importantly than that, I'm grateful to be here. So thank you for that opportunity. I would like to introduce my wife, Amy, and my kids. They are with me. So my wife, Amy, right there in the dress. I've got my son, John Witt. He is a 5th grader. I've got my daughter, Hadley. She's a 3rd grader. And then I've got my youngest, an unexpected surprise. He is my kindergarten student. So they are here with us. So those that might be watching on the camera or just came in late, these are not my grandchildren. These are actually my children. And when I was walking on the beach last summer, we just love bringing our grandchildren to walk on the beach. I'm glad you're doing that. Well, ma'am, these are my children. So anyway, I do get that from time to time. But if I could just tell a little bit about my story, if I could have a couple of minutes. So in 2015, I had reached a point in my career where I was ready to become a superintendent. You know, before that, I had been a teacher at a high school, at the middle school, and coach, a middle school assistant principal, elementary principal, and I also served as a dual role as a testing administrator at Guntersville City Schools. I had a great career there. And it was actually where I met my wife, Amy. We were both middle school teachers together. I taught history. She taught algebra. I was the junior high football coach, and she was the cheerleader sponsor. And I like to refer to that time as our time as middle school sweethearts. And now I'm probably going to hear that from her when we get on the road and head back home tonight. But in the summer of 2015, I applied for the Jackson County superintendent position. What you may not know about Jackson County is that it is an elected position. The position only had 16 months remaining in its term. When we made the decision to apply, we had to be okay with knowing that most likely I was not going to win the election. After all, I was only going to be there for 4.5 months before we had the primary. So really, you didn't have much time to really even prove yourself. And I did lose to a highly popular principal there in the school district. But Amy and I had to make a decision that we'll be okay if we don't win. Okay, we'll be okay. And we may have to move somewhere in the state, may have to move somewhere outside of the state. And we were actually good with that. So we packed up our bags and we moved to Jackson County. Now, here's my question for you. Why do you think we did that? And my next question is, would you have done that? Had a 3-year-old at home. I had a 1-year-old at home. We packed up and left. We only had 16 months in that job. Mark, you're looking at me just like my superintendent cohorts in my first group. What were you thinking? Why did you do that? Well, I'll tell you exactly why I did that. Well, we made the move for me to gain experience as a superintendent, knowing that it would help land us a position later. Jackson County then had 17 schools, 6 high schools, 5,000 students, over 600 employees, and a system budget of over $50 million. I think you will see those numbers are similar to the numbers you have here in Trussville City. The experience was invaluable. Shortly after, when the term ended, I got a call from Jasper High School to come interview. Loved our time in Jasper. I was appointed as the high school principal with over 1,200 students. Very involved in the community. Absolutely loved it there. I was only there for 1 year. And why was that the case? Well, it was because of the calling to become a superintendent. That's where I wanted to end up. And so I still wanted to be a superintendent. And that's when we started looking into Satsuma. And we researched the community there. We researched the school system there. And we thought, hey, this might be a place we would like to work and even live. And that's what we did. So we went to Satsuma, after leaving Jasper. In the summer of 2021, I was in my second contract at Satsuma that would have given me 6 years at Satsuma City Schools when I received a call from the executive director of AASB, Sally Smith, asking me if I would come as the assistant executive director at AASB. I thought then that it was a great career move. And it was, and it still is, especially considering the possibilities that it could lead to. But I keep fighting this same calling today, and that is to get back into the K-12 education. I miss kids. I miss teachers. I miss going to programs. I miss going to events. I miss going to athletic events. All of those things I have not done in the last year and a half when I was accustomed to doing that for 25 plus years. When you look back over my career, I've been fortunate to serve as a teacher, as a coach, an elementary and high school principal, superintendent, and now the assistant executive director at AASB. We have made several moves throughout the state. On a personal level, it's been great for my family. We have made great friendships and people that we are close to this very day. It's also been helpful on a professional level. It's helped me as well. I've had many contacts throughout the state, State Board of Education, State Department of Education, state legislators. And looking back on my past with the decisions made, it's only strengthened my resume. It's only strengthened my experience. It's only strengthened my expertise. And if I didn't make that move to Jackson County, board members, I would not be sitting in this seat as an applicant in Trussville. And to me, that's exciting. And in closing, in my 26 years, I've never been fired. I've never been asked to leave. I've never been pushed out the door. Just to be clear, my last few weeks at Satsuma City Schools, the board and I agreed for me to go on administrative leave so the board could go ahead and start the process to search for their next superintendent so that they could hire an interim and then move forward with searching for a permanent superintendent. And during that time, I served as a consultant for the board, helping the interim superintendent, but I also shifted my focus to starting my job with AASB.
Thank you. I'm going to back up here because I'm so embarrassed that I forgot. Kim DeShazo, our other board member, is listening by phone. She's traveling right now from Montgomery, so she won't be here till like 6:20. So Kim, I apologize, but she's
No
also
worries.
with us. Okay, she hears us.
No
So
worries. I'm here, I'm listening, and I actually was, I'm a native of Jasper, so and my brother-in-law teaches at the well, I guess it's now the high school, so we've got a kinship there in Jasper, but anyway,
great.
thank you, I'll be there shortly.
Great. Well, I look forward to meeting you, Kim. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, okay, we'll move on. I want to ask you, how many hats a superintendent wears for a school system, and they're all
Absolutely.
important. So as the superintendent of this school system, what would be your first actions? What would be your actions for the first month, the first few months, and the first 6 months? And how do you think you would gauge your success at what has gone on?
Okay. Well, when I think about the duties, the assignments, responsibilities, so a couple of things come to mind. If I were to start, if I'm the one that you go with, and I start on April the 10th, we're in hiring season right now. We're with personnel. I noticed with your ADM, you increased approximately 120 students. So you're going to be gaining somewhere between 3 and 5 teachers in the upcoming year. So immediately I would start working with with my administrator, with my principals, to work on staffing to get ready for that over the next couple of months. So I say that, but also I'm going to be developing relationships. And you're going to hear that key term over and over and over in tonight's interview. Relationship is the most important part that we do in this job, in the school business, whether you're a superintendent, a principal, or a teacher. Relationships and building relationships are the key. And along with building relationship, not only meeting with teachers and principals, but also with civic leaders, with parents. You know, those things are very important to me. And not only is that going to be done in the first couple of months, that's going to be ongoing. That's going to go into year 2 and year 3. Relationships is the key. And then, of course, the other thing, ESSER funding. It's going to be expiring in September, round 2. Round 3 will expire in September 2024. But we have money that's going to be expiring in September. And I want to make sure that we expend every single dollar and that we do not send 1 cent back to the state, which will eventually go back to the federal government. So that's going to be on my mind. What is our plan with expending those funds? And the plan should have already been approved, should have already been accepted. But how are we going to utilize those funds in this upcoming summer, with helping kids that may be falling behind in literacy, falling behind in math? What kind of summer programs do we have? Because that's where a large portion of that funding will actually go. So those are the things that I'm thinking of right now. But again, I'm going to keep going back to relationships. That's extremely important to me as I take on this position as superintendent.
One thing you said, let me ask a quick follow-up. So there's such a teaching shortage right now. So what is your plan for recruiting teachers? And there's also a lack of students going into education. So it's just a little side question, but how do you feel we can address
We're seeing
that?
an uptick with students going into education. Dr. Mackey reported on that last week, so that is a good thing. Another positive, science, math. We do not have the shortage we once had. We are making great strides there in the state. Now, why is that? That's because of the TEAMS Act. So the other part of that, with our teachers here, I think you got to have a culture and climate, and I'll get on into some of this later. I've always found it very important to create a climate where you don't want to leave, whether you're working for me in the central office or whether I'm your principal, and you were a former or a teacher of mine, or whether you're a principal of mine now. I want to create a culture and climate where I really like to work for Dr. Reeves. And if you want to leave, fine, we'll go and find the next best person. I've always thought like that, but no, with the shortage, go recruit. Hey, sell Trustful. This is what we have to offer, and you have a lot to offer.
Thank you.
Bart, I'll follow up on that before I go to my question. What is the superintendent's role in that recruiting of teachers? So we can't do name, image, and likeness. Maybe soon we'll have the Sneaky Pete's English class or something, but what do you see the
superintendent's role? The superintendent needs to make sure that he or her is sending principals to universities to recruit. I think that's important. I think the superintendent needs to be showing up as well. Interacting with these teachers. You're going to see later, I'm going to give you a few more recommendation letters, but you're going to see one from the teacher from Satsuma. I met her at the University of South Alabama. And from that conversation, she liked what she heard from me, and she thought, hey, I want to go work for that guy. And you're going to see a little bit about that in this letter here. But she's still one of our elementary teachers today and doing a phenomenal job. You have to sell the system. You have to sell yourself as an individual. I think, that's very important.
So you were going through the resume earlier. And so Jackson County, you guys met there and taught middle school together.
That happened at Gunnersville City Schools.
Gunnersville City Schools. Okay.
Correct.
Then went to Jackson County on the short-term thing that you knew would be short-term. Okay. And then Satsuma, which by the way, is just a cool city name to say. It just kind of goes.
And the oranges are great if you've never had one.
Okay. So when you think about these steps, I know you talk about this superintendent thing has been what you like the most, and we consider your leadership style. And I'd love for you to define your leadership style, but also in that statement, as you tell me that, I'd like for you to tell me what's your greatest leadership lesson you've learned through these steps, and what stage in your life was that? Where was it? What was it about?
greatest leadership lesson learned through these last 7 years? I'm guessing when I left Gunnersville, where I was for 18 years, it's funny. I go back to contacts with the number of contacts that I've made over this time. I'm very personable, I'm very approachable. I think those are key qualities, but I've met a lot of people across the state. And, you don't get a phone call from the executive director of ASB if they think you're doing a bad job or if you've got a bad reputation or anything like that. So I think with my contacts and the people that I've met, going from Jasper with leadership people that I met there and then ended up in Satsuma and the folks that I met in Mobile, I think by them getting to know me and knowing that I'm a man of integrity, I'm a man of doing exactly what I'm going to say. I'm a school person. I think those things were learned during those 7 years. And again, if I don't make that step to Jackson County, I'm probably not interviewing with you today. And that was a huge risk. Now, I will say this too. My wife was a stay-at-home mom then, still is, but she did have a math degree and she was an algebra teacher, but I also knew that we could rely on her to get back into teaching if we needed to, if I struggled to find a job. But no, I just think just the exposure. Right now as assistant executive director, I get to work with the state superintendent. I get to work with the state board of education. I get to work with the state department of education. I'm seeing these people on a weekly basis. And, contacts are very important, not because, well, I scratch your back, you scratch mine, but no, it's building genuine relationships with these people. And then when you need them for a situation, hey, we've got a special ed situation. Okay, well, I can call so-and-so at the State Department. I've gotten to know her, since I've been there. Hey, what do you think we need to do in this particular situation? So that's what I mean by contacts. I'm of the opinion, I don't want them to call you and say, hey, you need to appoint Bart Reeves as your superintendent. No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about with contacts, you build the relationship because you're probably going to need them in your professional career as issues, as problems come up in your school system. And I think that's huge. I think that's very important. So those are some of the things that I've learned in that 7-year stretch.
So, okay, context. So if we dug just a little deeper your style, I mean, what would make people want to follow you?
Okay.
I mean, we can take that to community and to staff.
Okay. So I believe that's question number 5 here. Not that I have them memorized, but I believe that would be question number 5. My leadership style is centered around people. It's centered around collaboration and supporting people. I'm of the opinion that if they are successful, the school system is successful. And if the school system is successful, and more importantly, who else is successful? Our students. That is very, very important to me. And this is a question where I talk about building strong relationships. I'm going to be building strong relationships with my team members and creating a positive and inclusive work environment. A work environment is very important to me. I want to go over expectations and the job descriptions with all of my people. I want them to understand those things, but I also want them to know that I want them to enjoy coming to work. Did you know that you can, as individuals, you can define the work climate by how you feel on a Sunday night? I don't know if you guys work or retired or anything like that, but how do you feel on a Sunday night? You want to go to work? If we have teachers or folks in our central office not wanting to go to work, we have a climate problem. And to me, I don't want that to happen. I want them to enjoy coming to work. I don't want them to feel like Bart Reeves, superintendent's always looking over my shoulder. He's trying to catch me doing wrong. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I want them to know that I support them, that I'm working with them, and I'm going to check in with them regularly. So-and-so, hey, how are things going? Do you need my help? What can I do to help you? Because I don't mind jumping in there. I don't mind helping them out. And I'm not going to ask somebody to do something that certainly I would not do. I think back, we had to move the school a year and a half ago. We had to move pre-K into one building and then we had to move 5th and 6th to another building. I was right there helping out. We had teachers, we had players all helping out. I wanted, to me, that's important. When they see you getting in there and getting your hands dirty and helping out, I think that's a great leadership style because what does that show? It shows them that you care. It shows them that you want to help them be successful, but also you'll get in there and help them out, when you need to also. So that is my leadership style. I also believe in open communication. I believe in updating my employees to let them know what's going on in the school system. And I'm going to get into a little bit of that later in what is called a board brief, but that's important too. And then again, I've mentioned this already. I'm approachable. I'm personable. And I want people to feel comfortable to talk to Bart Reeves. That is so important to me because folks, if you have good working relationships with your people, I promise you, school board, they will move mountains for you. And that's my management style. That's my leadership style. I guess some probably could call that a servant leadership, but that's what I believe in. That's what I'm passionate in.
So eliminating the achievement gap is a must, okay? So what are your expectations for students to achieve? And do you believe that all students can achieve on a higher level?
Okay. You'll give me a chance just to look at my notes, please. Well, I know I have that question in here. Page 10, here we go. So the quick answer to the first two of your questions, the short answer to the first two, high expectations. I believe kids can learn at high expectations. And yes, all students do learn at high levels. But this is the comment that I want to bring to your attention. Dr. Ed Richardson, he was state superintendent many years ago, even came in as interim a few years back before Dr. Mackey. But he was also Auburn University president. And we were on the phone one day and he told me, he said, Bart, there's not one silver bullet in education that raises student achievement. He said, if there was, guess what? Every school system in Alabama would be doing that. So that begs the question, what are effective schools doing to raise student achievement? Well, first, I think this set of expectations needs to be present. And then I'm going to get into procedures after that. First, academic emphasis. Student achievement is a top priority, and everybody in that building, everybody in that school system, even the community needs to know and understand that student achievement is a top priority. From my custodian to my CMP worker, to the principal, to everybody in between, student achievement is a top priority. That is academic emphasis. All right, the second part, collective efficacy. Do we all believe in one another? Do we believe we can get the job done? Do we believe we can reach out to all students and increase their achievement? Do we believe that we can reach out to the most challenging students? Okay, that's collective efficacy. And then the third part, faculty trust. Do the faculty trust their students? Do they trust their parents? And then is the relationship reciprocal? That's also another part. And when you have these things present and they're all working together, research shows that student achievement will increase. But folks, it takes a whole lot more than that. Now, let's get into the procedures. Let's get into the process. Effective school systems have to have a system in place that monitors student achievement. They have to ask these 4 questions. What do we want our students to learn? Well, that's the curriculum. That's your standards. That's your objective. These are the things we want our kids to learn. All right. How do we know when they have learned it? Well, now we're looking at our assessment program. We're looking at progress monitoring, using iReady. I'm not sure exactly what the school system here uses, but we use iReady in Satsuma. And what do we do when they don't know it? Well, this is your teacher response. When you are teaching a lesson, 80% of your kids should be able to understand that lesson when it's taught. All right, 15% may not understand it, and you provide them tier 2 instruction. After tier 2 instruction, okay, yeah, I get this now. I know what I'm doing now. And then 5%, and that would be your tier 3 response, they're going to need a little more help. So that would be your tier 3 instruction. So you need to make sure that you have all of those things in place. And I am confident that Trustful City Schools have those things in place. I mean, obviously you're a top 3 school system in the state. But effective schools should also have data meetings to make sure that they're looking at strengths and weaknesses. To make sure that, hey, this is where our kids are right now. This is where we need them by December. This is where we want them in May. So those, that's very important too. Effective school systems, the principals are very supportive of their teachers. They do not stay in the office. They're in the classroom. They're in the hallways. They're having conversations with their teachers. And also, I'll take it a step further. The superintendent should be doing that as well. Getting into the schools, talking with the teachers, understanding their concerns, and providing that support. When you have these things taking place in a school system, you're going to see increases in student achievement. You're going to see successful school systems. So again, all of those things are important to me. All of those things are things that were present in the school systems in which I've been a part of. And again, that's my answer to that question.
Okay, thank you.
Now let's talk a little bit about communication.
Okay.
How are you going to communicate with the board, teachers, stakeholders, the community? And in doing so, how are you going to incorporate, or are you going to incorporate technology? And which parts and what components of technology would you consider?
I am a technology enthusiast. I love technology to the point where it probably drives my wife insane. Depends on the message. And what do I mean by that? If it is something that directly needs to go into the parents' hands, okay, maybe a weather alert, maybe a rumor, or maybe something that happened that, hey, parents need to know that, and they need to know that as quickly as possible. I'm going to use Schoolcast or Blackboard Communications. I'm not sure what the platform we use here, Blackboard. So use Blackboard here. Now, why is that? Because it's going to go directly to your telephone, either in a text message or email, or maybe they're going to hear my voice. And when I do send out Schoolcast or Blackboard, it's going to be my voice they hear. That's important to me as well. So it depends on the situation. All right. Let's say it's a weather situation. And let's say we've got ice coming in and we need to make a decision. This is the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to let my stakeholders know and then let my employees know first and then get it out to the community. All right, this is when we're expected to make a decision. We're going to make a decision at 6 p.m. what we're going to do the next day. All right, so we get on there, we make that decision. We come on at 6 o'clock. Okay, we've canceled school. All right, we're canceled school for tomorrow. Parents, we will now make a decision tomorrow by 4 p.m. Now, why do we do that? Well, we've got working parents. They need to know what they need to do with their children so that they can plan accordingly for the next day. So I want them to know, one, when the decision is going to be made, two, when we make that decision so that they can plan accordingly. But communicating with stakeholders, if it's urgent, if it's important, if it's weather, and of course, I know being up here in I don't know if you really call this northern Alabama, maybe it's central Alabama, but I'm from northeast Alabama, and I know and I respect tornadoes. Obviously we have those here in this area as well, but we're going to communicate that way depending on the urgency of the message. If it's something highlighting the school system, we're probably going to put that on social media, maybe Twitter, maybe Facebook, because the other part, you don't want to flood your parents with daily emails and text messages and voicemails, because it's going to get to the point where they do what? They may not listen. And when that Schoolcast comes out and they get that phone call, they need to listen. They need to know what's going on because, hey, this may be something very important. Other ways of communicating, newsletters. I know during the COVID pandemic, we would report our close contacts, and we would also report those who were sick. We would just put the number out. This is what's happening in our elementary school. This is what's happening in our high school. Now, and we did it before the state dashboard, before they started doing it there. We started putting those numbers out. Now, let me ask you why. Why do you think we started putting those numbers out weekly? See, I'm putting y'all on the spot. I'm probably getting check deductions here, but.
So parents would know.
Absolutely. So if we have 100 kids that are quarantined, but maybe 5 or 6, 10 kids that are sick, okay, I'm going to keep sending my child to school. That's a risk. That's a minimal risk. But if we're having 100, 150 sick with COVID, I think I'm going to dial back. I think I'm going to, I don't think I want to send my kid. I'm going to work with the school system in some other way for my child to receive their instruction. So, I thought that was important for us to get that communication out. Newsletters, I think newsletters are important too, regular. Working for AASB, this is one thing that I see that, the industry standard on clicking and opening an email, if you can get 35%, that's good. Thankfully, in some of the publications I send out, we get 55 to 60%. So I would want a system in place. I want to know if parents are opening up the emails that we are sending to them. I think we put something out every day here in Trussville, social media, and it has a lot of information. I would want to know the number of clicks, that is getting. And is that something that we want to continue? Here recently, I read a book called Smart Brevity, and it talks about, I want you to think about your inbox right now, all of the emails that are consuming you, and just, are you going through all of them? Are you deleting them? What are you reading? Well, Smart Brevity, and this is what I would also bring to the school system too. Condense your information, get out the most pertinent information that parents and stakeholders need to know. If you're sending 2 or 3 page letters, folks, they're not reading it. They're not reading it. And, I know many times, and still talking with teachers at Satsuma, they're saying, hey, we've already told our parents this. We already told our parents that. And I'm looking at, these lengthy letters, and some of that is just getting lost in translation. It's just getting lost because of the extensive amount of digital messaging that's going out there today. But those are my thoughts. Hopefully I've answered your question on communication.
Follow up a little more on technology. How do you use technology, or how do you see technology in the classroom? Especially with our AI coming in, our bots, and you've been reading about the Chat GPT.
Absolutely.
What's your thoughts on that?
Wow. Well, I liken it to calculators. I wasn't teaching when calculators came in on the scene, but I imagine math teachers were like, oh my goodness, calculators are coming in on the scene. I think we need to embrace AI. I think we need to embrace Chat GPT. I think students need to know about it. I think they need, because that can give them examples on how to, for their various styles of writing that are being taught to them, where it's informational, whether it's persuasive. You put in your prompt, and then it just spits it out. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And I got that from Smart Brevity. I get a message every day from Smart Brevity. That's how I was introduced to it back in November. And we started having these conversations, and pretty much Alabama still hadn't heard about it. A few weeks ago, I was visiting Auburn City Schools with the State Board of Education, and I started asking the principal and another teacher, hey, have y'all heard about Chat GPT? No, what is it? You need to find out about it right now, because here's the thing. We don't want to use it for bad. We don't want to use it in a manner that morally that's wrong. But if we can use it in a manner that can help us, absolutely. So I could go home tonight and I could write a prompt, draft an email, compose an email to the Trussville City Board of Education. Thank them for the opportunity for the interview tonight. Here are the ones that attended the meeting. Here are their board members. You put their name in, and then I'm going to click write. And it's going to draft you the most beautiful professional letter thanking you for this board meeting, for this interview tonight.
We have the best technology department in the state of Alabama with these 2 individuals over here that know all about this, right?
Yeah, look at their reaction. They're liking my response over here. I can tell. So, but no, I'm telling you, it's about to change the world, folks. I mean, it really is. It's being compared to the invention of the internet. That's how some are comparing it. And if you were to go there and ask a response, now it's integrated with Bing, which is part of Microsoft. It's going to get to the point where it's going to take you exactly. Well, actually, it's going to give you the answer, and you're not even going to have to go to the website to search. Okay. Now, what is that going to do? Well, that's going to cut down on the number of clicks in these websites, which that gets into marketing, and that gets into their revenue sharing and those type things, because now those ads are not popping up on those websites that you're visiting, because you get the answer that you want, and then you proceed from there. It's phenomenal.
Going to send a message back to Sally Smith to include a webinar on GPT, Chat GPT for training session for board members?
It's been heavily discussed
Okay,
and
good.
we want it in our largest setting. It may not happen this summer, but we want it in a large setting where most of our board members, number one, they know what it is. Number two, they can respond to it. They may need to implement certain policies to go along with it in their school district. But if your administrators or your teachers are not aware of it, they need to get aware of it very soon. You know, it's probably going to come to a point where we want kids to present their writing in the classroom. You know, yes, we trust our kids, but we also know their kids because they're kids. And, you know, we want a true sampling of what they can do. But GPT chat can actually show them appropriate, successful, effective writing samples. So I'm going to compare it to the calculator.
We're way off topic. But what a great comparison. I never will forget the cold shiver I got in my first college calculus class and they told us no calculators. And, but then you think about everybody could do it today, but that it's a fascinating topic. Matter of fact, my highly intellectual breakfast club has had conversations about this. haven't we, Mark? So,
People that, you know, got upset when they did away with buggy whips.
yeah,
I'm sorry, say that again.
Buggy whips, remember buggy whips? You don't remember those.
no, he doesn't.
This goes
Buggy
buggy
whips.
whips, never
That
mind.
was how you got here. So,
Uh,
Kathy.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, you know, it's been a tough couple of years across the state, across the US, I mean, across the world. It's, you know, our employees worried about our staff. We lost, you know, a lot of teachers decided to retire. So how do you, and I remember when the staff came in and we were meeting in August, they all said they felt a little refreshed. They felt like it was going to be back to normal, whatever normal is. So how do you boost and keep morale high, but also creating a culture of learning and high expectations among our teachers?
okay. Trying to find this question. I apologize. I just like to have my notes in front of me, but all right, do you see which question that is? Okay, so number 8, so that's gonna be page 8 right here. So all right, so what is your plan for boosting and keeping morale high with your employees? First of all, I'm going to start out with this. I challenge you to call Jasper High School, talk to teachers I work with. I challenge you to call Satsuma School District, talk to the teachers that I work with. I challenge you to call Cherokee Elementary in Gunnersville, talk to the teachers I work with. I go back to a positive work climate. You know, you must have a positive work climate. What you see with me every day is exactly what you're going to get. You know, I may have struggles at home. We may be going through issues at home, possibly, but this is how you're going to see me every day. And that's going to be one of the first things that I tell the employees. This is me every single day. So number one, that's important. If I come in here and I'm really mad and upset, and no one wants to be around me, and you just don't know what you're going to get from the superintendent from day 1 to day 2, that is a problem. Okay. So this is how I'm going to be every day. So let's talk about some of those things. Visit schools regularly. As superintendent, I'm going to visit schools weekly. I'm going to get in my elementary schools. I'm going to get in the middle school. I'm going to get into high school. I want to know kids. I want to be able to put a name with a face. I want to know my teachers. And when you're in there with the teachers, hey, what's going on? What can we do to help? You know, what are the good things that are taking place? What's something that, hey, we just need to handle right now? Now, of course, I'm going to have those conversations with principals, and I'm not trying to go behind their back, thinking, well, they're not conveying that certain information. No, it's not that. These are employees that fall under my leadership, and I want to know what's going on. And the way you do that is to get into the schools. It's not to go with an agenda. Oh, I'm trying to catch my principal doing wrong, or I'm trying to catch the teacher doing wrong. We're going to have genuine conversations about their class. You know, I want them to share the great and wonderful things that are taking place. And you do that by visiting the schools, by getting into the schools. The next thing, we're going to communicate regularly, and we're going to be transparent. This is board brief. Are you familiar with board briefs? Have you ever heard of board briefs before? So I've done this in each of the 2 school systems where I've been superintendent. It is absolutely wonderful. So let's say we're having a board meeting tonight. We acted on A, B, and C. We hired this person, that person, this person resigned. We also adopted a new policy that we're going to be implementing in the school district. All right, so what's going to take place later that night? I'm going to write up a board brief. I'm going to send it out to my employees the next day. They're going to know what happened at the meeting the very next day. Folks, you have no idea how effective that is. You also have no idea how effective it is that, okay, we're used to getting that, and then all of a sudden that stops from happening again. I promise you, it is effective because it allows your employees to know what's going on in the school district. Prior to that, how would they find out that information?
Board meetings.
Okay, live stream, so they'll probably go, 30 minutes, hour, whatever the case may be. Maybe they can't even make it to watch the live stream. Maybe, I know it's recorded and they can go back later. But this is going to be a summary of what took place. Also rationale why we spent X number of dollars on something. Well, we needed to do this because of why. Again, that is very helpful for employees. It keeps them in the know. And so plan for boosting and keeping morale up. They're going to know what's going on in the school district. Again, I've already talked about creating a positive workplace culture, but let me go into something else. This is called valuing teachers' time. I want to give 3 examples that I've been a part of in my career. Summer school remediation after school pay has been traditionally $20 to $25. Okay. When you look at the daily rate of pay and you divide that by 8 hours, no, our teachers are not on hourly salary or, paid by the hour. I get that. But you're going to see where teachers make $35 to $60 an hour, depending on where they are with their experience, with their degrees, or if they're a Teams teacher. So let me ask you this. So Mark, if I come to you and you're one of my teachers and you make $40 an hour, I need you to come teach summer school this year, and we're going to pay you $20 an hour. How are you going to feel as a teacher?
Not too happy.
But I make $45 an hour when you look at the hours and the time spent. So to me, that's inconsiderate. As a superintendent, we need to make sure that we're at least on a minimum paying them their hourly rate of their daily rate of pay. That's important to me. Number 2, incorporate flex days. Okay. Let's say that we wanted to have a 2-day training. We needed our math teachers to come in. Let's say we were not in a position to pay them for whatever reason. All right. So this is what we're going to offer to them. All right, math teachers, if you come in, this is what we're going to do. So we've got 7 contract days. We've got where you can come in and work in your classroom, or it might be PD. You work these 2 days in the summer, then you don't have to come 2 days whenever in the school year, whenever those work days or the professional development days may be occurring, because why? You've already worked those in the summer. All right, so we get back to morale. We get back to keeping morale high. So as a teacher, how's that going to make you feel? Wow, he cares about my time. And this is what he's going to let us do. We work these 2 days in July, and then we don't have to work maybe a day in August, and then maybe one at fall break if it's a teacher work day. And of course, we're going to have the documentation. I expect the principals to have that in their school. And we make sure that if they do work in the summer, then they're not going to have to come in later at whatever day that may be. And we would have to designate that day, because we got to, bookkeepers, we want our bookkeepers to be happy too, but we got to make sure that it is well managed. So that's the second one. The third one, you have your calendar committee. You have teachers, elementary teachers, high school teachers, parents, maybe the PTO, maybe a board member that serves on the calendar committee. Okay. So as the calendar is being developed, when you're in the schools, ask a first-year teacher, ask a veteran teacher that may not have been on a committee before, get their thoughts on the calendar, because maybe they're thinking something that the committee is not thinking about. And again, that goes back to, wow, he really values my input. He really values what, our concerns. And again, I think that helps with morale. I think that helps with creating that positive work environment. But I'm going to go back to all teachers I work with. Have direct conversation. If I am one that's being seriously considered for this job, I encourage you to call teachers that I've worked with. So that's important to me.
Under climate and culture, would you differentiate those two, or are they the same?
I think climate would be what is happening right now in the moment. Culture over a period of time, a long period of time. And if you had a toxic work culture, you know, my research has led me to believe that it's going to take 3 to 5 years for you to overcome that toxic work culture. In my research of Charlottesville City Schools, I do not believe you have that. I think I did watch the survey results that posted online and I think some were concerned that, well, we need somebody to bring the community together, to bring the teachers together. Those might have been isolated comments. I don't know that that's how the vast majority feel, but culture, I think over a longer period of time, climate, what is taking place right there at the present time.
So earlier you introduced what I've recently learned is called the Sunday Scaries. When you said, do people want to go to work on Sunday, thinking about Monday morning, are they ready to go to work? As a superintendent, how do you ensure, you think about the dynamics of this, that all groups are engaged and ready to work? I mean, going beyond Monday, of course, but I mean, and I'm taking this too as a kind of a DE&I question. So kind of your thoughts on that, engaging all groups and making sure they feel included.
Okay.
Really? No, well, Mark just asked me. Sorry.
All right, so page 14 here is what I have, and question number 15. In your role as superintendent, how would you ensure all groups are fully engaged with schools? So everybody needs to buy into moving the school system forward in all areas, not just certain groups, not just certain people, not just certain activities. If you're a student in this school system, you are important. You have a name, you have a mom, you have a dad. And as superintendent, I'm representing every single school, every single student in this school system. And I'm going to be their number one advocate. That's why we're in the school business, is for kids. So I'm going to make sure that we are moving our kids forward. Let me give you another example. As a principal, I took over an elementary school where basically parents, anybody could select the teacher that they wanted. Okay. Let's pretend that you are third grade teachers. All right. And let's say that Miss Kathy, we're going to give you the who's who. Anybody that wants you, we're going to give you, hey, we want them in your classroom. We're good with that. How are you going to feel as a teacher if you're a part of that grade level? Why is she getting quote unquote great kids? And then sometimes it's, let's say, Mark, we're going to put all of the kids that have behavioral issues, we're going to put them in your classroom because you're really good with behavior students. You're the best we have. How is that going to make you feel? You're being punished for doing a great job with kids that are challenging. So one thing that we did at Guntersville, we made sure that we divided up our kids equally. Black, white, male, female, behavioral issues, gifted. I wanted a well-represented class in each of my classes and all of my classes in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. That was important to me. And let me tell you, folks, it was not very popular. But when I had the opportunity to explain that to parents when they came into my office and they're upset, okay, let's pretend you're a teacher and we're putting all of these kids in this teacher's classroom. Oh, well, I never really thought about that. You didn't because you were only thinking about your child. As superintendent, as principal, a former principal, I'm thinking about all of the kids. So when it comes to that question, engaging all groups, yes, we're going to be engaging all groups because we're going to be a customer friendly central office. People that may need to come in and speak to me on issues, I'm going to have an open door approach. Okay. Let me give you another example, special ed. By visiting classrooms, again, I get into classrooms. This happened in Satsuma a couple of years ago. but we had a high number of our severe needs special ed kids in a classroom. I want to say it was around 11 or 12. A couple of our students were bedridden. We had a couple of nurses in there. I mean, I don't see how the teacher functioned. And getting in there and talking with the teacher, this is what we did. All right, this is where we're gonna go back to contacts that I was talking about a few minutes ago. We were getting supplemental help from the State Department, $70,000, $80,000 in what is called catastrophic funding. And but when we had that higher number and the higher number of the severe needs, called the State Department, we applied for catastrophic funding, we received 200,000, and we have received that in the last 3 years. What did that allow us to do? It created another special ed unit. It created 2 aides. It also helped us pay for a nurse by, number one, submitting the application. Number two, hey, we need your help. We do not have the local funding to pick up the cost for the special ed. Now, we're going to do everything we can because we want to serve our kids. But we also know that with the federal government, they do not fully fund special ed. And, you know, our state helps out tremendously, and especially with catastrophic. So I'm the superintendent of special ed kids as well. So again, we're not going to say, well, this group, hey, we're going to feature them and we're going to leave this group. That's not how I operate. I am the superintendent of every single child in the school district, and that's important to me. And then finally, extracurriculars. You know, I'm a sports person. I was a athlete. I coached, and I know more about athletics than I do fine arts. But I made sure that at Satsuma that we were helping with band and choir. We created a choir and a drama teacher that they did not have previously. We renovated their neglected classrooms that were neglected over a period of time. We got those where they needed to be. Now, why did we do that? Was it because I favored high school or elementary school? No, because we had kids in those classrooms and they deserved better. And we went to bat for those kids. So when you're talking about all groups, when you're talking about different races, different genders, when you're talking about different programs, I'm the superintendent of all, and we want to make sure all of them are spinning and heading in the right direction, that we're going forward in all of those areas. That is very, very, very important to me.
We'll come back to Ken.
Yeah, do you mind if I? Again, I'm sorry I've been to Baldwin County and back
I
today.
was afraid you might have got stuck on 65. We did earlier today. So.
Talk to me about parents. I've listened to every minute of tonight, and we've talked a lot about relationship and the role of the superintendent with teachers, and which is of course an important role, but obviously we have other stakeholders here too. Talk to me about parents and what role, what you see as your role as far as your parents are concerned, communication with parents, leadership style, strategic planning, involvement of parents into, and so I know I'm combining several questions here, but.
Yeah, you're leave it to
But-
an attorney, right?
Well, I am, but I also have 3 children in the school system. And so, it's important to me as a parent to know how, you would communicate with parents and how you would engage and involve them in decision-making or strategic planning, those sorts of things.
Okay. Let's go back to communicating first. Talked a little bit about, well, specifically to what, can you give me a scenario or issue? I mean, I know I talked about communicating
Sure.
with parents with using the school platform, you know, weather, dangerous situations, rumors, that kind of thing.
Certainly. And I think I'm talking more about, as far as if you're developing a new policy or you're looking at how our curriculum should change or whatever, how are you going to engage parents in decisions that come before you as superintendent?
Okay. So let's say that we are looking at a new policy. Thankfully, most are not controversial, but there may be one that is controversial that we are going to need stakeholder input. It could be that we put out a newsletter, or actually in this situation, probably best using Blackboard communication so that it goes to all parents. Trussville City Schools is considering this policy. We would like to have your input, your take. on this, should we pursue this at our next board meeting? And again, we're talking about policies that are probably controversial. It would certainly be to our benefit to include our parents. But getting back to the community and parents in general, relationships, again, I go back to relationships, it's critical. And if I have a parent that's coming to me, hey, I have concerns about X, Y, and Z, I'm going to listen to that parent. Then, may have to go to the school. If it's a school level concern or if it's a teacher concern, then certainly we want to direct them to the source of where that concern started to begin with. But no, I believe that with parents, you listen to them and then you figure out, best solutions based on, what you learn from that parent. I've had very angry parents come into my office. I can't believe we did this. I can't believe we did that. And I pride myself on a skill set to de-escalate the problem, to bring the problem down in terms of, well, he's listening. At least he listened to me, and that generally resolves the issue. I say, I might be asking them to be patient. Hey, go meet with your teacher, go meet with your principal, whatever the case may be. But going back to the policy, I think that's where we get that information out to them and get their input. And then, of course, you would vote on it in the next meeting or possibly the next. State Superintendent, State Board of Education, they have a 45-day wait. So they announce intent. All right, we're announcing intent of what we plan to do. And then that gives the public a chance to come to the next meeting to direct their concerns, ask their questions. And then the next meeting, we're going to be acting on whatever that policy may have been. That's another way that you can handle that. Probably that's probably the best way, in all honesty. The board is approving our intent of what we plan to do 45 days out. And then we're going to let you have an opportunity to come speak on that at the next board meeting. And then when you meet the parent in the grocery store, hey, I cannot believe y'all did this. Well, we gave parents the opportunity to speak. We gave them the opportunity to voice their concerns or ask the questions. And then, that's how we could easily handle that.
How do you feel about parent advisories? Committees, are you?
Fine with it. How do you feel about student advisory committees? Love that too. We want input from our parents. We want input from our students. I think that is important too. They're stakeholders. In strategic planning, various things that we've done at school level, I've included parents. I don't have a problem with that. And sometimes I'll ask parents out on the, at the track field or the football game. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? This is what we're considering. What do you think? I think that's important too.
Thank you.
I want to piggyback on that. Because you stated that you want to, make sure we have all parents involved. What about the parents who don't want to express their opinions or say anything because they're scared? How would you make sure that all groups, everyone is to have a voice, and how you going to ensure that? Because you just don't want one particular group that's always saying this and saying that, but you have another group of parents that's not agreeing with everything that another group may be saying. How would you handle that?
Well, first you can include parental involvement by having activities at school, programs at school, to get the parents into the schools to see what their kids are doing. We've had a couple of programs at Satsuma in the last 2 weeks where hundreds of parents have come into the gym and the kids are presenting a science lesson or a history lesson or whatever the case may be. They're walking around to the different parents, but yet they're coming into the building. So that's parental involvement right there. All right, so let's say that is happening. Well, I would encourage principals, and I would do this myself. Hey, someone I probably don't know, someone that I see often, but maybe I don't know it, go to that individual and get their thoughts. Certainly I want them to feel comfortable talking to Bart Reeves, not Dr. Reeves, the superintendent. That is important to me. I want to be approachable. I want to be personable. I was meeting as many people as I could a few minutes ago. I didn't do that as an act. Hey, look at him. Well, look what he's trying to do to impress the board. Absolutely not. Because if I get this job, hey, well, I met you at the board meeting. I appreciate you coming. And then you start building those relationships. And again, I go back to, you don't build relationships just to scratch one another's back. You do it because it's the right thing to do, because you genuinely care about people. And I cannot stress and emphasize that enough. If parents know that you really care about their kids and about them, I promise you, they're going to move mountains for you. That's been my work experience as a principal and superintendent. Is every day rosy and every day perfect? Absolutely not. Sometimes, you're going to have that angry parent, but my job is to bring the parent down to where they're calm, they're speaking rationally. All right, now let's see if we can work through this problem. I'm not going to be slamming the door on them or kicking them out of my office unless it were to become violent or something like that. But, I pride myself having that skill set to de-escalate issues. But going back to your question again, we got to create opportunities. If I'm appointed, I'd love to have town hall type meetings in the schools where parents come get to know Bart Reeves. Let me know your concerns. What are your safety concerns? What are your academic concerns? What are your questions that you have for me? May not be able to answer them in the first few weeks, but I'll get back to them. And I would also offer that to the teachers as well. How can we get better? Yes, we're number 3, but we don't want to be complacent. We don't want to remain number 3. We want to get better. Allow those avenues for teachers, for parents to come meet with me, to ask questions, to relay their concerns.
Go back to teacher morale. As you very well know, every year there are more and more responsibilities and duties given to teachers, to the point now where if they have time to teach, they're involved with everything imaginable. How are you going to approach that? Because you know as well as I do, with everything that's happening these days, all the requirements and all of the different tasks they have to perform. What's your thoughts on that? How do you address that?
First, you have to be supportive of your teachers. You have to get into schools. You've got to listen to their concerns. And then you ask them, what can we do better? How can we help? How can we help at the district level first? What does the state need to do at the state level? Let's go back to contacts. That's where contacts at. That's actually what I do right now, with conversation with legislators, with the state superintendent. So, I would think I would have influence, if teachers are coming to me with, well, this is how we can solve that. Yep, you're right. We could do it this way. Pick up the phone. Hey, we need somebody to work in this area for us. This is killing our teachers. We need help. Going back to morale, I would also encourage the teachers at 4:30 or 5 o'clock to shut it off. What do I mean by that? They need to have a work-life balance. You've got emails coming in, you've got text messages coming in from parents, and you feel like you've got to answer, and you need to answer in a timely manner, and all of those things are important. But it may not have to necessarily happen right there in that moment. And when 4:30 or 5 o'clock gets here, they need to shut down. They need to go exercise. They need to go be a part of their family, whatever they like to do to shut down. They need to be encouraged to do that. They don't need to be encouraged to be here to 7 or 8 o'clock. Hey, we've got to get this done. We've got to get that done. That's important to me as well. I work with a couple individuals actually. I'd get 10 or 12 questions in an email at night. And I'm like, now I've got to use my staff, and I got to, get my staff to work on these questions. And I don't mind the good questions coming in, but typically they would come in on a Saturday night or a Sunday night. And then my train of thought, my mind is thinking, I've got to get these questions answered. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I don't do that to my employees. I schedule if I'm working late at night, and teachers are going to be working late at night, even though you tell them, hey, shut down at 4:30. I mean, it's just in them. Sometimes that's their quiet period and they can get some things done. And I get that, but I want them to know from me, hey, you need to have that balance. But going back to the 13 questions or 12 questions, I'm going to schedule my emails to the principal, and that email is going to go tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. And that way that'll give him time to know, okay, that's here. And then he'll be thinking about that, whatever the case may be. Or maybe it's a board brief that's going out to the entire district. It's not going to go out that night. It's going to go out that next morning. Because again, you know, we all have our phones with us and, you know, we're, okay, well, this is the work email. Now I'm reading this and, you know, I just think they need to hear from superintendent that, hey, folks, it's okay to have a life. It's okay to be with your family, to be a mom, to be a dad, to be a husband, to be a wife. Those things matter to me. And, anyway, that's what I believe on that.
Okay, so I think well, we're about to run out of time here. So I guess just to wrap up, if you could just kind of talk to us briefly about strategic planning. And then that can just, if there's anything else you wanted to share with us that you haven't had the opportunity to.
So of your 21 questions, I have been pondering the strategic plan question and wondering why are they asking that one? And I'm happy to answer, but you know, with all strategic plans, they're very, very simple. You want to have a planning committee and it needs to be made up of stakeholders that look like trustful. Okay. I think all of us would agree to that. It needs to be made up of parents, of teachers, elementary, high school, need to have a student or two on there as well. Probably need to have a city leader on there. Would be good to have a board member on there as well. So you come up with your committee. The next thing you're going to do, you're going to have a needs assessment. You're going to be looking at the strengths and weaknesses of facilities, of personnel, of instruction, of the list goes on and on, but you're going to compile, you know, your strengths and weaknesses. The next thing, you're going to come up with objectives and goals on how to accomplish those things that you as a committee have set. And then you're going to have implementation, you're going to have action plans, and then the superintendent is going to be gauged on that at the, you know, in an annual review. Hey, are we making progress on our strategic plan? And of course, I'll be reporting those things to you. This is what we have done this year. This is expected to be done the next year, and we have plans to make sure that that is done as well. But as I was thinking about the question, you know, that's the regular process of strategic planning. I've been a part of many of them. One of my favorite ones is the SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats. I've been a part of that one as well. But here's why I was thinking about that question. Had a board member who wanted to take that on to lead the strategic planning. Wonderful idea. And he actually wrote a book, and he's a great board member, solid public education guy. But we started the planning process. So we launched it. We had our committee. Everything's going great. And then guess what interferes? Work life and personal life, things of that nature. And he was not able to put in the time to see the strategic plan through. Okay. Now, I would be hesitant to put that on us in the central office because we all have responsibilities and duties that we're trying to perform daily and trying to make sure that we are creating a strategic plan as well. That's going to be very challenging. So I would recommend to the board that you contract out with a third-party vendor. Now, this is not a shameless plug for AASB. I know we do that, but whoever you wanted to go with and actually administer the strategic plan. And then we're going to be coming together, maybe sometimes in the afternoon, probably most of the time at night, coming together, and we're going to develop the strategic plan. But as your superintendent, it would be my responsibility to make sure that is carried out.
Any questions for us?
I do have some final comments, if I may. Well, I've got all of these out of whack. I do know what page number it is. So I would like to leave with this. Why trustful? You have an excellent school system. I'd love for my kids to be a part of it. I would love to be the one leading this school system. This is a great place to raise a family. I've got 3 young kids right here behind me, and I would love for them to be in the school system. My wife and I have searched the internet extensively to learn more about Trustful. We even came here in November when I knew then that I wanted to be your next superintendent. We even attended church here in Trustful. We have visited the community today to gain a better understanding of what the community is like. We even had lunch here today. So thinking about that, why Trustful? Those are reasons why we want to be here, okay? And as your superintendent, you're gonna have a very visible superintendent. You're gonna have one that that's gonna be eating in these restaurants, that's gonna have both feet in this community with my family. I'm not gonna have 1 foot in and 1 foot out from where I came from. I'm going to be jumping in with both feet. You're gonna see me involved with youth athletics, coaching my kids. We coached a 5th grade game last night. We lost, and I'm still not over that, but maybe I will be on the way home. But we're going to be involved. We're going to shop in the grocery stores, shop here locally. You're going to see your superintendent out and about. And folks, superintendent job is not an 8 to 5 job. It is a 24/7. And I'm going to see people out in the community, and I'm going to be striking up these conversations and meeting people because it's the right thing to do, because that's what effective superintendents do. All right, so that's why Trustful. Now, why me? I have the experience and expertise to lead the school system to the next level. I'm confident in that. I will always make decisions that are best for the school system, for the teachers, and the students. And I'm going to leave you with this. But my focus will always be on putting students first. All students, all groups, to make sure they are engaged. That will be a priority of mine. So when you take all of this in consideration, including my successful work experience, I want to throw that in as well. I believe my family and I would be the right fit for Trustful City Schools. And I believe I would be a great fit as your next superintendent.
Thank you.
So I do want to leave you with additional reference letters. That I wanted to bring, so we do have time to look at these. I just appreciate it. Have an elementary principal, elementary teacher, there's been office staff,